So from today we are going to start the ancient history, and hopefully this week and the next week we would be able to complete that. So though it would be a long journey, but we have to complete this syllabus. So the chapters are long, so study along with me, then only it would be feasible for you. ये चैप्टर्स बड़े हैं, बाद में आप नहीं पढ़ पाओगे. So there are 4 books itself in the 11th and the 12th. So good morning to all of you. How are you all? So let's start the class. So first chapter today we will be going to study is the early India from the beginning to the Indus Civilization. So it would be a long chapter, so it will take us time to complete that. Now let's start with the learning objective. What we would be going to learn after studying this chapter. Now after studying this chapter we would be going to learn about the Stone Age of the humans in the India, then to understand the Paleolithic and the Mesolithic societies of India, to learn the importance of the Neolithic revolution, and at last we would be having the knowledge on the salient features of the Indus culture. Now do complete these books. If you want to make notes, do make notes with me itself. So agar if you leave this at the later time, then it would be hard to complete these books. Now let's start with an introduction. Now India experienced an early development of the cultures and the civilization. Since the old Stone Age, the several groups in the India have migrated multiple times and made cultural adaptation to diverse eco zones. Each group evolved its own culture, responding to their living experiences in each place, which eventually led to pluralistic beliefs and the systems. Now, from a life of the foraging through the nomadic pastoralism, the settlers in the Indus region reached a mature stage in the Bronze Age. So initially, if we talk about the life of these people, they started as nomadic pastoralism, and then later on they reached to the mature stage of the living in the Bronze Age. So you will find the development in this sense. Now this chapter, it focuses on the history of the India for the first settlement of the humans in the Stone Age up to the decline of the Indus Civilization. It dwells on the Neolithic culture as well. Now we will talk about the sources. Archaeological sources from the bedrock of the information for us to understand this long span of time in the Indian history. Now they include the archaeological sites, geological sediments, animal bones, and the fossil stone tools, bone tools, rock paintings, and the artifacts. So what do you have? You have the archaeological sites, you have the geological sediments, animal bones, and fossil stone tools, bone tools, rock paintings, and the artifacts. Now there is no written evidences for this period, although the Harappans used a script, but that has not been yet deciphered. हरप्पन्स एक स्क्रिप्ट का यूज करते थे, पर उसको हमने डेसिफर नहीं किया है. ये लोग लिटरेट नहीं थे, इनके बारे में हमें नहीं पता है. द फोनल, दैट इज द एनिमल, and the floral, that is the plant, sources are important for the understanding of the relationship of the Stone Age people with their environment. Floral evidences found. Floral means the animal evidences that found in the form of the charred seeds, pollens, pyloliths, that is the plant stones, help us to gain the knowledge of the farming practiced by the Stone Age people. The human genes also constitute an important source for understanding the prehistoric migrations. The mitochondrial DNA, that is called as the mtDNA, studies provide information on the prehistoric migrants. Now, scientists are trying to extract the ancient DNA from the bones of the prehistoric era to understand the human dispersals. So, the scientists are working on to know more about the history through the DNA technique and trying to know more about the people of the ancient times. Now, language is another important source of the history. Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Austro-Asiatic, and the Tibeto-Burman languages families have flourished in India. These languages developed and evolved during the various phases of the migration in the history. Now, what you came to know about the reading the sources, you came to know about there are various sources. For example, archaeological sites, geological sediments, animal bones, fossils, stone tools, bone tools, rock paintings, then artifacts, then comes your faunal and the floral remains, then human genes, and at last the language they talk about. Next is the prehistoric India. The period before the development of this script is called as the prehistoric time. Now, anyone ask you about the prehistoric, अगर आपसे कोई पूछे prehistoric period के बारे में, तो you tell him that it is a period before the development of the script. So the definition would be before the time period before the development of the script is called as the prehistoric period. Now, it is also referred to as the Stone Age. When we talk about the Stone Age, we include the entire South Asia, the region covering the India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh as a whole. Human ancestors are likely to have first evolved in Africa and later they migrated to the different parts of the world. माना जाता है हमारे पूर्वज मतलब कि ह्यूमंस के पूर्वज वो सबसे पहले दिखाई दिए थे अफ्रीका में और फिर वो अफ्रीका से ही बाकी पार्ट्स में जो हैं चले गए. The earliest human ancestor species to migrate out of the Africa was the Homo erectus. So it was the Homo erectus. Now till the end of the 20th century, the prehistory of the India was considered to have begun within the time span of 1 million years. That is the MYR ago, million years ago. Now, but the recent investigations have produced the evidence for the presence of the human ancestors in the India between the 2 million and 1 million years ago. Generally, the period before the invention of the script is broadly divided into the Stone Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age. Now, hence the names of the materials that they used. For example, painted grey ware culture or the Iron Age culture, or the geographical region that is the Indus or the first site to be identified. So, for example, Archeolian or the Harappan are used to name their cultures. सो कल्चर्स के इनके नाम रखने के लिए तो जो पहली साइट मिल जाती थी उसके नाम पे कल्चर रख दिए गए या geographical region around that if the site has been founded then the name would be on the geographical region. For example, their culture that is the painted grey ware or the Iron Age culture, so the name comes from there only. Now one more thing I wanted to tell you, you don't have to refer any specific book for the culture. If you does this ancient and the medieval part, the culture is inhabit here itself. सो कल्चर के लिए आपको रेफर करने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. हाँ, बेसिकली इफ़ आई टॉक टू यू द मॉडर्न कल्चर और द ब्रिटिश कल्चर, दे हैव नॉट कवर्ड डेट. ब्रिटिश आर्किटेक्चर उन्होंने कवर नहीं किया है इस बुक में, और ब्रिटिश टाइम पे जो कल्चर था दैट दे हैव नॉट discussed with you, but we will do it later on. Now, the earliest age in the history is called as the Old Stone Age or the Paleolithic. The period is divided into the three parts: Lower Paleolithic culture, Middle Paleolithic culture, Upper Paleolithic culture. The period after the Old Stone Age Paleolithic is called as the Mesolithic Age. The period that followed the Mesolithic is called Neolithic Age. This is the age in which animal and the plant domestication developed, leading to the food production. The classification of these cultures is done on the basis of the stratigraphic, chronological, and lithic evidence. Means it talks about that the classification has been done on the three factors. These factors are the stratigraphic, chronological, and lithic. Means what type of the tools they found as the evidence, or the chronology of the tools, and on that the naming has been done. नाउ दे हैव बीन टॉकिंग एवरीथिंग इन डिटेल. यहाँ पर ये जो है सब चीज़ों को डिटेल में डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, तो यू डोंट हैव टू रेफर एनी अदर बुक. Now, for modern history, they have not written a good book, but with the time, we will come to know about the ancient and the medieval history. Now, Lower Paleolithic culture. The earliest lithic evidence artifact come from the different part of the Indian subcontinent. During the Lower Paleolithic culture phase, the human ancestor species of the Homo erectus is believed to have lived in the India. The first Paleolithic tools were identified at the site of the Pallavaram near the Chennai by Robert Bruce Foote in the 1863. He found many prehistoric sites when he extensively surveyed different parts of the South India. Since then, numerous Paleolithic sites have been identified and excavated all over the India. Now, lithic tools. The study of the prehistory mainly depends upon the lithic tools. Prehistoric sites are identifiable based on the presence of the stone tools. Human ancestors made large stone blocks and the pebbles and chipped tools out of them using another strong stone. Hand axes, cleavers, choppers, and the like were designed in the way by flaking of the chips. Now the tools show well thought design and physical symmetry, and convey high quality cognitive perception skills and capabilities of prehistoric humans. They use the tools for hunting, butchering, skinning of the animals, and breaking the bones for the bone marrow, and to recover the tubers and plant foods, and for processing foods. Now they have given the use of this. So the use of the tools was for the hunting, butchering, skinning of the animal, breaking the bones for the bone marrow, and to recover the tubes for the plant foods and the processing foods. The industries of the Paleolithic culture are divided into early, middle, and the late Acheulean industries. The early Acheulean tools include the polyhedrons, spheroids, hand axes, cleavers, and the flake tools. The Acheulean tradition is absent in the Western Ghat, coastal areas, and northeastern India. Heavy rainfall. So we have left heavy rainfall attributed to its absence, uncognizable conditions, and the lack of the raw materials might have prevented the occupation of these areas. Perhaps there was no necessity for the prehistoric period to move into these areas. These sites are found more in the central India and in southeastern part of the India, that is near Chennai. Now these areas receive high rainfall and are therefore endowed with the thick green cover and rich resources. Now we have left one box above. Let's do that box. Now, wild and the domestic. So wild plants and animals grow naturally and independently. When they are domesticated, their lifestyle and physical characteristics such as the self propagation change. मतलब कि जो वाइल्ड प्लांट और एनिमल होते हैं वो अपने जो है इन्वायरमेंट में नेचुरली और इंडिपेंडेंटली ग्रो करते हैं, बट जब उनको हम डोमेस्टिकेट कर लेते हैं तो उनका पूरा लाइफस्टाइल बदल जाता है, वो डिसिप्लिन्ड हो जाते हैं. Now, consequently, the seeds of the domestic plants became the smaller in the size. Now, in the case of the domesticated animals, they lose their ferociousness. And that was the one fact about the wild and the domestic. Next is the Archeolian and the Shohanian. Based on the research to independent cultural traditions of hand axe, one is the Aquilian and the pebble flake, that is the Sohanian industries were confirmed. So these industries are confirmed in India. Aquilian industry mainly had the hand axes and cleavers. So इस Aquilian industry में जो है hand axes बनते थे. The Sohan industry is considered to have used only copper and the chopping tools. Chopper, not the copper, chopper and the chopping tools. The Sohan industry gets its name from the Sohan River Valley of the Pakistan. So ये पाकिस्तान की सोहन रिवर के पास मिली है. That's why its name has been Sohan River Valley. Now, these two cultural traditions are not considered distinct any longer. Recent studies argue that there were no independent Sohan tradition, as Aquilian tools are found in the Sohan industry as well. Now, next topic is about the distribution. Lower Paleolithic tools are found in most part of the India, except in a few regions of the Ganges Valley, southern Tamil Nadu, and in the hilly areas of the Western Ghats. Now, Athiram Pakkam, the Palavaram, Gudiyam near the Chennai, Hunsgi Valley in the Isampur in the Karnataka, and Bhimbetka in the Madhya Pradesh are some important Paleolithic sites where the Aquilian tools are found. Next is about the chronology. Recent research places the beginning of the lower Paleolithic around 2 million years ago. Now, this culture continued up to the 60,000 years ago. Next is about the Homian and the animal fossils. Unlike Africa, evidence of the hominin, immediate ancestors of the Homo sapiens. So, ये Homo sapiens के पूर्वज हैं hominin. They are the hominin, they are the fossils is the rare in India. Now, there is a report of a fossil fragment discovered by the Robert Bruce Foote from the Athiram Pakkam. Now, its whereabouts are not known now. Now, the only well-known hominian fossils of the India was found at the Hathnora near the Hoshnagabad in the Madhya Pradesh. The cranium is named as the Narmada human. A partly preserved hominid skull cap was found in a basal conglomerate deposit in the 1982. It is considered to represent the archaic Homo sapiens. It is only existing fossil find of the human ancestors in India. Now, animal fossils are useful to understand the paleo-environmental context in which people lived. In the Narmada Valley, animal fossils of the Elephas nemandicus, that is the giant tusked prehistoric elephant. Now, Stigdon genesia, that is a giant prehistoric elephant. Now, इनके scientific name है ये italic में, these are the in the italic, these are the scientific names. Now, next is the Bos nemandicus wild cattle. Equus, the Nemedicus, is the extinct great horse-like animal, have been recovered. Teeth of the equus, evidence of the water buffalo and nilgai, as well as 17 animal hoof print have been uncovered at the Athirampakkam. So you can see the pictures of these have been shown. Now there is a line that has been missing in this book. एक लाइन है वो इसमें लिखी नहीं हुई है, मैं पढ़ देता हूँ आपके लिए. Now they suggest an open wet landscape near the Chennai region in the prehistoric period. Now equus refers to the genus of the animal including the horses, asses and the zebras. Now next comes is the way of the life. The people of the lower Paleolithic culture hunted the animals and they gathered the roots, nuts and the fruits. They fed on the flesh and the bones of the animal killed by the predators. They lived in the open air, river valley, caves and the rock shelters as seen from the evidence in the Bhimbetka, in the Madhya Pradesh and the Gudiyam near the Chennai. The prehistoric human ancestors who belonged to the species of the Homo erectus did not have a complex language culture like us, the Homo sapiens. Now, they may have expressed a few sounds or the words and used a sign language. They were intelligent enough to select the stones as the raw material and used the hammer stones to carefully flake the rocks and the design tools. So this was about their way of life. So they used to live near the river valley, in the caves and the rock shelters, and the examples are the Bhimbetka and the Gudiyam. Next is about the Middle Paleolithic culture. After about 4 lakh years before present, आज से 4 लाख साल पहले, changes took place in the lithic technology and species of the human ancestors that diverged. The species of the Homo erectus existed in this period. Some of the Middle Paleolithic tools are attributed to the behavioral modernity. Automatically, modern humans are said to have emerged around 3 lakh years ago. In India, the Middle Paleolithic phase was first identified by the H.D. Sankalia on the Pawara River at the Navasa. After this discovery, several sites of this period have been identified. Recently, the Middle Paleolithic of the Athirampakkam is dated to be around 3.85 to 1.72 lakh years before the present. Indian Middle Paleolithics probably may be as old as the African Middle Paleolithic culture. Now this was the Middle Paleolithic culture. Next is about the industries and the tool types. The tool types of the Middle Paleolithic period are hand axes, the cleavers, then comes the choppers, the chopping tools, scrapers, bores, points and projectile points or the shouldered points, and the knives or the flakes. Now you will find that from the stages to the stages, from time to time these tools would become more refined and they would be changed from the time to time. Flake industry was predominant in the Middle Paleolithic period, and the tools such as the scrapers, the points and the borers were made. The scrapers were used for the wood and the skin working. About the chronology. The Middle Paleolithic culture in India is dated between the 385,000 and the 40,000 BCE, while the African Middle Stone Age is associated with the Homo sapiens. It is associated with the Neanderthals in the Europe. Neanderthal in the Europe. No human fossil. Not about, I am talking about the stone tools. Now these stone tools, they will be became more refined from the as compared to the previous time. I am talking about these stone tools. Like the technology changes, in the same way these stone tools will become more refined as compared to the earlier, and a new technology will come in the upper Paleolithic, and the tools would be more sharper, more refined in the upper Paleolithic periods. No hominin fossils bones of this species have been found in India. Now, distribution, the Middle Paleolithic sites are found in the Narmada, Godavari, Krishna, Yamuna, and other river valleys. Now, last part of this topic is the ways of the life and the main characteristics. Are found in the Narmada, Godavari, Krishna, Yamuna, and other river valleys. Now, last part of this topic is the ways of the life and the Middle Paleolithic people occupied the open air, cave, and the rock shelter sites. Now, they were the hunter gatherers. The main features of the Indian Middle Paleolithic period include the tool became the sharper, smaller, the decrease in the use of the hand axes in relation to other tools, use of the core preparation techniques in the stone tool production, use of the chert, jasper, chalcedony, and the quartz as the raw material. So these 4 points sum up your Middle Paleolithic. Now, other than that, you don't have to study anything. Do study these 4 points. These are important, and these sum up your all the Middle Paleolithic culture. Oh, wise. I have switched on my fan now. That's why there was a problem in the sound. And in the morning I can't use the AC now. The problem is with that also. If I use AC, then I will caught the cold. Now, Upper Paleolithic culture. The cultural phase that followed the Middle Paleolithic is called as the Upper Paleolithic. Now, this period is marked by the innovation in the tool technology and increase the cognitive capability of the humans. The modern humans who first evolved in the sub-Saharan Africa sometime before 3 lakh years ago, they migrated to and occupied various parts of the Asia around the 60,000 years ago. Now they probably replaced the earlier population. Now there is a possibility that these new groups were responsible for the Upper Paleolithic culture of India. Now yeah, it was running over the night, and now in the morning I have had the coffee, so that can have the a problem. Yeah, it cost the money, and money is not the matter, but the health is the matter. Na, it I will quote the It is cold in the morning also. Then if I play that na, these days humidity is more. An Upper Paleolithic shrine. An interesting find is of a possible shrine indicated by a block of the sandstone surrounded by a rubble circle similar to the contemporary shrines found at the Bagor in the Uttar Pradesh. It is the earliest known evidence of a shrine in the India. So this you can see, these have been found in the UP. These are the earliest shrines. Now lithic tools and the industries. The lithic industry of the Upper Paleolithic period is based on the blade and the bone tools technology. Microlith were the introduced in the Upper Paleolithic period, and these tools were made using the different varieties of the silica rich raw materials. Bone tools and the faunal remains have been found in the Kurnool caves of the Andhra Pradesh. So this is important, the Kurnool caves of the Andhra Pradesh. Chronology. The Upper Paleolithic culture is represented in the India at several sites. A time bracket of the 40,000 years to the 10,000 years below present is suggested for the period. About the distribution, the people of this period used the caves as well as the open air space for living. Meral Bhavi in the Karnataka, Kurnool caves and the Godavari Kahani in the Telangana, Baghor 1 and the Baghor 3rd of the Son Valley in the Madhya Pradesh, and Patne in the Maharashtra are the some of the Upper Paleolithic sites of India. Sri Lanka has evidence of the microliths and the hominin fossils. Incised ostrich eggs and the shell and the stone beads have been found at the Jwalapuram in the Andhra Pradesh, Patne in the Maharashtra, and the Batadomamba Lena and the Fahin caves in the Sri Lanka. So this decorated ostrich shell from the Upper Paleolithic that has been found from the Patne in the Maharashtra. Now, ostrich egg shells. Evidence of the ostrich have been found in the some prehistoric sites of the India. The egg cells of this bird has been used as the beads, and those from the Patne have been dated to the 25,000 below present. They have been found in the Bhimbetka and the Patne. Now, about the ways of the life and the main characteristics. Evidence of the art in the Upper Paleolithic period appears in the form of the paintings. Now, beads and the ornaments of this period have also been found. The lithic blade industry advanced in this period. Some of the green color paintings of the Bhimbetka are dated to the Upper Paleolithic period based on the style and the archaeological evidence. Now this was all about the your Paleolithic culture. Next starts your Mesolithic culture. Now Mesolithic sites. Mesolithic, the meaning of the Mesolithic means meso means middle and lithic is your stone age. So this is your middle stone age. Mesolithic sites are found in the most part of the India. They occur in all ecozones from the coast to the hills, sand dunes, rock shelters, deltaic regions, lake areas, forested territories, hill and the mountain areas, rocky terrains, and the coastal environments. Mesolithic sites in the India are found in the Pesra, that is Bihar, Langhanaj, the Gujarat, Baghor second, Chopani, Mando, Sarai Nahar, Mahanda, and the Damdama, all in the Uttar Pradesh, Sankan Kalu, and the Kiban Hali, Karnataka. Now you don't have to remember these names. So though these names appear in the exam, but how many you can remember for the exam? So it's impossible to remember so many names. Now it appears the names in the current affairs, only those are important. Coastal sites are at the Mumbai, Terry sites at the Tuticorin in the Tamil Nadu and Vishakhapatnam, which have the microlithic evidence. Now, whereas the rock shelters, these are important sites. The sites of the rock shelter, Bhimbedka, Adamgad, then the Bagai Khor and the Lekakia. Next is about the Terry. Terry is a coastal landscape caused by the sand dunes. These soils may have originated in the Pleistocene epoch of the Quaternary period. Next topic is about the climate. After the ice age, with the advent of the global warming, human groups became highly mobile and they began to occupy the various ecozones. The monsoon pattern has already emerged. Some regions witness the higher rainfall. At Didwana in the Rajasthan, fresh water lakes were known to exist between the 1000 to the 300, 3500, 3500 below present, before present. The animal bones from this period suggest a dry deciduous type of the forest during the Mesolithic period. Now, chronology about this period. The date of the Mesolithic culture, it varies in the different parts of the world. This culture is assigned to the pre-agriculture times in certain areas. In Levant, that is the Eastern Mediterranean, they are dated between 20,000 and the 9,500 BCE. In India, the Mesolithic cultures, they appeared around 10,000 BCE. In certain parts of the India, including the Kerala and the Tamil Nadu, it continued up to the 1000 BCE. Till the beginning of the Iron Age, in Sri Lanka, the microliths appeared about 28,500 years below present. Economy. The hunting the wild animals and gathering the plant food and fishing were the people's main occupation during this age. Now this becomes your important part. So the hunting wild animals and the gathering plant food and fishing became their important occupation. Now remember one thing, that the agriculture was not practiced in the early stages. At the end of the Mesolithic period, humans domesticated animals and paved the way for the Neolithic way of life. The rock paintings of the central India, they depict of the hunting, trapping, fishing and the plant food collection. The faunal evidence from this period shows that the people belonging to this period hunted the cattle, Gor, buffalo, barasinga, porcupine, sambar, chital, gazelle, hog, deer, nilgai, jackal, turtle, fish, wild hare, lizard, fox, and the monitor lizard. Bones of the rhinoceros and the elephant have been found. They used spears and bows and the arrows as the traps. The paintings of the Bhimbetka show that the various animals were hunted, and for this the men and the women they went together. The people used fire and the perhaps roasted the food. Domestic animal bones of the cattle, sheep, goats, pig, and the dog have been found at the Kaneval, Lotheshwar, the Ratanpur, and from the Adamgad and the Bhimbedka in the Madhya Pradesh sites. The camel bones have been found from the Kaneval. camps and the houses. The Mesolithic period were highly mobile. Now they moved in the search of the animal and the plant foods. They made temporary huts and also used the caves and the rock shelters. Circular huts with the post holes and the burnt clay lumps bearing reed impressions have been found. Many of the caves and the shelters feature the paintings. Circular huts are the seen in the rock paintings. The temporary huts were built using the perishable materials. The traces of the oval and the circular huts and possible wattle daub are found in the Chopani, Mando, and the Damdama in the Uttar Pradesh, and the Bagor and the Tilwara in the Rajasthan. So, burials. Now, the Mesolithic period buried the dead, which suggests their beliefs and the human relationship. Human skeletons have been found in the Mahadaha Dama Sarai Nahar Rai in the Uttar Pradesh. At the Mahadaha, a man and a woman were buried together. One burial had an ivory pendant as the grave good. Now, next comes is about the art, and remember that the Bhimbetka about the it is of this age only. Art is an integral part of the human existence, while the evidence of the art is found in the Europe in large volume. They are found only at a few sites in India. A church stone used as a core had geometric engravings from the Chandravati in the Rajasthan, bone objects from the Bhimbetka and the human tooth engraved with the geometric design. Rock paintings are found in the rock shelters of the Madhya Pradesh and the central India. They show people hunting, trapping animals, and the fishing and the dancing. Bhimbetka near Bhopal, Raisan and the Pachmadi in the Madhya Pradesh, and the South Mirzapur in the Uttar Pradesh are some of these sites. Hematite and iron rich stone was traces of the rubbing has been found. Now these people might have decorated themselves with the flowers and the leaves. Now next topic is about the hunter and the gatherers of the historical period. The hunters and the gatherers using the microlith tools continue to live into the later period. Even after the development of the Neolithic, Iron Age, and historical periods, perhaps they became part of the marginalized communities. Now, when the people who lived in these cities acquired more wealth, some of the people live in the forest even today in the some remote areas, and also in the Andaman region could be considered as those people who prefer to live by hunting and gathering. Many such groups lived in the 19th and the 20th century, as recorded in the Idgars, Tutharsans, caste, and the tribes of the southern India. Describe them as the primitive is incorrect. They should be considered as the people who preferred to live by the hunting and gathering. When the Indus civilization was in its peak, the Tamil Nadu has a microlithic hunter gatherers. The Andhra Karnataka region had the agro pastoralist of the Neolithic period. Now, the next part, that this becomes an important for your exam point of view. The Mesolithic people lived in the semi permanent and the temporary settlements. They occupied the caves and the open grounds. They buried the dead. They had the artistic skills. Now they were spread over the wider regions, that is the geographical regions. Cultural continuity is noticed in the many parts of the India from this period. Their microlithic tools enabled them to hunt the smaller animals and the birds. Next topic is about the early Neolithic cultures and the beginning of the agriculture. So at the early Neolithic culture, you will find the agriculture will start. The Neolithic period marked the beginning of the agriculture and animal domestication. It is an important phase in the Indian history. Early evidence of the Neolithic culture is found in the Fertile Crescent region of the Egypt and the Mesopotamia, the Indus region, the Ganges Valley of the India, and also in the China. Between 1000 BCE to the 5000 BCE, agriculture emerged in these regions, which led to the several cultural development. So this is the time period when your agriculture develops. So they have shown a map and they have marked all the places which we have discussed or we would be going to discuss about the Neolithic period. The introduction of the domestication of the animals and the plants resulting into the production and the supply of a large quantity of the grains and the animal food. The fertile soil deposited by the river enhanced the growth of the agriculture, generating a surplus of the grains. Surplus food production played a major role in the rise of the early civilizations. Large villages came to exist and the pottery developed. Permanent residences were built. Hence, the cultural development of this period they are called as the Neolithic Revolution. The Neolithic cultures of the India is divided into the various regional cultures and they flourished in the different time periods. In the northwestern part of the India and Pakistan, it began at a very early date. In the northeastern India, Neolithic cultures appeared at a very late date around the early historic period. Now, next comes is the Neolithic culture in the northwestern India. The Neolithic culture of the northwestern India is the earliest to have the evidence of the plant and the animal domestication in India. Mehergarh, the Rana Gundai, the Saraikala, and the Jalilpur are the some of the Neolithic sites. So इन्होंने जो है sites दिखा दी of the northwestern India. Now these sites are now situated in the Pakistan. The sites of the Mehergarh. This is an important. Mehergarh is an important, and it has been asked by the UPSC. The site of the Mehergarh has had produced evidence of the early Neolithic times, dating to the century that is the 7000 BCE. Wheat and the barley were the cultivated, and the sheep, goat, and the cattle were domesticated. The culture preceded the Indus Civilization. The first cultural period that is the of the Neolithic age at the Mehergarh, it dates from the century 7000 to the 5500 BCE. The people belonging to this age did not use the pottery but the cultivated 6 row barley, emmer, and the corn, wheat, jujube, thai, and the dates, and also domesticated the sheep, goat, and the cattle. Now they were the semi-nomadic pastoral groups. They built their houses with the mud and they buried their dead. Now they used the ornaments of the sea shells, limestone, turquoise, lapis lazuli, and the sandstone. So there they have given the early dentistry of the Neolithic Mehergarh. You can see the picture of the Mehergarh also shown. The human ancestors had the knowledge of the medicinal herbs and were capable of taking care of the health for the survival from the prehistoric times. As their ways of the life changed, new diseases appeared and they had to find the remedies. From the Neolithic period, people began to eat the ground grain, and the cooked the food. Now, which caused the dental and the other health problems. Now, the earliest evidence for the drilling human tooth of the living person had been found at the Mehergad. Now, it is seen as a prelude to the dentistry. Now, the period that is the second at the Mehergad, it dates from the century 5500 to the 4800 BCE, and the period third from the 4800 to the 3500 BCE. Now, there is the evidence for the pottery during these periods. Terracotta figurines and the glazed faience beads have been found. Evidence for the ornaments on the women have been uncovered. Long distance trade was practiced as revealed by the lapis lazuli, which is available only in the Badakhshan. The town was abandoned after the rise of the mature phase of the Indus Civilization. Now, so much have been given in this book. They are discussing so much about a particular area, and this might be done at the level of your bachelor's, so it is equivalent to your doing the BA. Oh, and that is also the BA in the history honors. Next comes is the Neolithic culture of the Kashmir. Now I am thinking of those people who are in the 12th class or the 11th class in the Tamil Nadu, how they used to learn all these things. Neolithic culture in the Kashmir region was contemporary to the Harappan civilization. Burzahom, an important site of this culture, now provided the evidence for the megalithic and the early historic periods. Now, in this place, the people lived in pit houses about 4 meters in depth. In order to escape the cold weather, the houses were the all in the shape, wide at the bottom and the narrow on the top. The post holes used for constructing a thatched structure were found around the pit houses. And not everything is important for us, so but we are reading that so that we come to know about the culture, we would be able to write a good answer. That's why we have to do these. Okay, but NIT is for only physics, chemistry, and bio. The Neolithic period of the Kashmir had domesticated the domestic sheep, goat, and the cultivated plants. The Neolithic people of the Burjaham traded with the people of the Harappan civilization. They used the handmade pottery. They used the tools such as the stone axes, chisels, edges, pounders, mace heads, points, and the picks. Awls were used for the stitching the skins into the clothes to beat the weather, and the scrapers were used for the working the skin. Now, two phases of the Neolithic culture have been identified. They are termed as the acremic and the cremic phases. Acremic phase did not have evidence of the cremics. Cremic phase shows the evidence for the existence of the pottery. Now, in the cremic phase, people built the mud houses. They used the copper arrowheads. They also used the blackware pottery, beads of the agate and the carnelian and the painted pottery. A burial at the site produced the wild dog bone and the antler horn. An engraving of a hunting scene is depicted on a stone here with a dog and the sun. Now, seeds of the wheat, barley, common pea, and the lentils have been recovered from the excavations. People domesticated animals, including the cattle, sheep, the goat, pig, and the fowl. Bones of the wild animals, such as the red deer, Kashmir stag, ibex, the bear, and the wolf, suggest that they hunted the animals. There is evidence of the menhirs and the use of the redware pottery and the metal objects in the megalithic culture. The use of the lentils suggests that the contacts have been established with the Central Asia. Now, these people had interactions with the Harappan civilization also. Now, next comes is the Neolithic culture of the Ganges Valley and the Central India. In the Ganges Valley and the Central India, Neolithic sites are found at the Lahur Dev and the Chopani Munda. The site of the Lahur Dev has produced the early evidence of the right cultivation dated to century 6500 BCE. These sites are characterized by the code marked pottery, Koldiva, the Chirand, Sanuvar, and the Magr are the important Neolithic sites in this region. These sites also have the evidence of the pottery and the plant and the animal domestication, evidence for the cultivation of the hulled and the six-rod barley, several types of the wheat, rice, pea, gram, green gram, and the gram chicken, pea, mustard, flax, linseed, and the jackfruit have been found at the sites of the Central India. Sheep, goat, and the cattle bones have been found beside the bones of the wild animals. Yes, Burjahom is very important site for the exam point of view. But you have to read this. Yes, you have to read this by selectively. You have to read the things. Not everything you have to read. Like the Mehergad is also important. And then Burjahom is important. The Neolithic people used a type of the pottery with the code impressions on the surfaces. They used the microliths, bone, and the antler tools. And the terracotta objects, these sites perhaps flourished till the age of the middle of the second millennium BCE. Next comes is the Neolithic culture of the Eastern India. Neolithic sites are found at the many sites in the Bihar and the West Bengal. Birbanpur and the Chirand are the some of the prominent Neolithic sites in this region, along with the Kuchai, Golbesan, Sun, and the Sakarjang, and these cultures show the similarities with the Neolithic complexes of the East and the Southeast Asia. Pointed butt, celts, chisel, and the shouldered axes have been found in the region from the Neolithic era. Now, Neolithic culture in the South India. The Neolithic culture of the South India have been found mainly in the Andhra Pradesh and the Karnataka and the northwestern part of the Tamil Nadu. These sites have the ash mounds in the center with the settlements around them. More than the 200 Neolithic sites have been identified as the part of the Neolithic complex. Now, these sites are found near the granite hill with the water sources. Now, these sites have been supported in the river valley of the Godavari, Krishna, Pennaru, Tungbhadra, and the Kaveri. Sangam Kallu and the Tekal Kota, Brahmgiri, Maski, Pikil Hal, the Vatakal, Hamij, Halur in the Karnataka, Nagurkonda, Rampuram, and the Verapuram in the Andhra Pradesh, and the Pepalli in the Tamil Nadu are the major Neolithic sites in the South India. You don't have to refer any of these sites. इनमें से कोई भी sites आपको याद नहीं रखनी है because they are not important. But do read them once for the exam point of view. You should know that these were around the rivers, that is the Godavari, Krishna, Penneru, Tungbhadra, and the Kaveri. Because these are the so much sites, how many you would be able to remember? Now, some the Neolithic sites have ash mounds, Utnur and the Palvoy in the Andhra Pradesh, the Kodekal, Kopagal, Budhyal in the Karnataka feature the ash mound sites. Soft ash and the decomposed cow dung layers are also found at this site. The evidence of the habitation in the form of the houses and the burials are found around the ash mounds. The Neolithic culture of the Northeastern India. In the Northeastern India, the Neolithic culture appears at to a very late period. The Neolithic culture of the Northeastern India generally date from the 2500 to the 1500 BCE or even later. Yeah, sure, Raja. The Neolithic culture of the northeastern India generally dates from the 2500 to the 1500 BCE or even later. Shouldered axes and the splayed celts have been found at the sites of the Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, and Arunachal Pradesh. Daujali, Heading, and the Sarutaru are the Neolithic sites in the Assam region. This region bears the evidence for the shifting cultivation of the yams and the taro buildings stones on the wooden, the memorials for the dead and the presence of the Austro-Asiatic language are the marked feature of this region, which shows the cultural similarity and the south with the Southeast Asia. Now this was the one topic that we have covered. This was the about the prehistoric period. Now the second topic that talks about the Indus Civilization. Now Indus Civilization, it represents the first phase of the urbanization in the India. While this civilization was in its peak, several cultures, namely the Mesolithic and the Neolithic cultures that we discussed earlier in this chapter, prevailed in the other parts of India. Now, this is an important topic for your exam point of view. Now, it will take me half an hour to complete this chapter. I will need more half an hour more to complete the chapter. Nomenclature, phases, and the chronology. The civilization that appeared in the northwestern part of the India and Pakistan in the 3rd millennium BCE is collectively called the Indus Civilization. Since Harappa was the first site to be identified in this civilization, it is also known as the Harappan Civilization. Now, since Harappa was the first site to be identified in this civilization, it is also known as the Harappan Civilization. This civilization did not appear all of the sudden. The beginning of the Neolithic villages in the northern in the region go back to the about 7000 BCE. At the Neolithic site of the Mehrgarh, Harappan culture is divided into the various phases. Early Harappan, that is the 3000 to the 2600 BCE, then mature Harappan 2600 to the 1900 BCE, and the last is the late Harappan 1900 to the 1700 BCE. The urban phase, we will take a break after the class is over, so you can have a big break for the day after the class is over, and by 8:30 I would be able to complete the class. The urban phase was prevalent in the mature Harappan period and began to decline afterwards. The Indus Valley site of the Harappa was first visited by the Charles Mason in the 1826 and Emery by the Alexander Bernays in the 1831. The site of the Harappa was destroyed for the laying the railway line from the Lahore to the Multan. The seal from this site reached the Alexander Cunningham. He was the first surveyor of the Archaeological Survey of the India. Now remember then when we were doing the current affairs from the PT 365, there we have talked about the Archaeological Survey and the Alexander Cunningham. Now Alexander Cunningham visited the site in the 1853, 1856 and the 1875. But the importance of the site and the associated civilization were not realized until the Sir John Marshall took over as the Director General of the ASI and initiated the research at the site. Sir John Marshall played an important role in the development of the archaeology in the India. Later in the 1940, Mortimer Wheeler excavated the Harappan site. After the partition of the Indian subcontinent, many of the Harappan sites went to the Pakistan, and thus the archaeologists were keen to trace the Harappan sites on the Indian side. So Kalibangan, Lothal, Rakhi Gadi and the Dholavira are the Indian sites that have been since excavated. The explorations and the excavations conducted after the 1950s have helped to understand the Harappan civilization and its nature. So हमारी कुछ civilization partition के बाद वो पाकिस्तान के पास चली गई थी. उसके बाद भारत ने अपनी खुद की जो है साइट्स ढूंढी, वो हैं कालीबंगन, लोथल एंड दी राखी गढ़ी एंड डोलावीरा. Now Kalibangan is famous for the Bengals. Lothal is famous for the dockyard. Rakhi Gadi is famous for the plowing tools. And Dolavira is famous for the water harvesting. So remember these facts. Now next topic is the geographical area and the settlements. The Indus Civilization and the contemporary cultures covered nearly 1.5 million square kilometer area in the India and Pakistan. The settlement of the Sutkegun Dor in the west of the Pakistan-Iran border, the Shortugai Afghanistan in the north, and the Alamgir Uttar Pradesh India in the east, and the Damabad in the Maharashtra in the south are the boundaries of this civilization. Its core areas was in the regions of the Pakistan, Gujarat, Rajasthan and the Haryana. The early beginning. The Indus region, Mehergarh, is one of the areas of the world where the agriculture and the animal domestication began very early. We do not know if there is any continuity between the Neolithic culture of the Indus region and the later urban civilization. The early Harappan phase show the development of the villages and the towns in the entire region. In the mature Harappan phase, the urban centers they developed. So there was a map. So they have removed the map. So the book I am having, there is a map, but there is no map in that book. Okay. Now Harappa, Punjab, Pakistan, Mohenjo-daro, Sindh and the Pakistan. Dolavira, Lothal and the Surkoto, that is the Gujarat, India. Kalibangan and the Banawali, that is the Rajasthan, India, and Rakhi Gadi, Haryana, India, are the major cities in the Harappan period. Fortification, well-planned streets, and the lanes and the drainages are noticed in the Harappan towns. A civic authority perhaps controlled the planning of the towns. The Harappan used the baked and the unbaked bricks and the stone for the construction. The town have a grid pattern and the drainages were systematically built. The houses were built of the mud bricks while the drainages were built with the burnt bricks. Houses had the more than the one floor. What, Raja? I am saying that I have a printout of a book. It does not have it. It has the maps there, but in the book that I am doing, this is the recent updated one. So this does not have the map. This I have downloaded in the 2019 itself in the second month. So you can see the date at the lower part of the book. The site of the Mohenjo-daro has a planned town built on the platform. It has the two distinct areas. One is identified as the citadel and the other as the lower town. The houses had the bathroom paved with the burnt bricks and the proper drains. Some houses had the stair indicating the existence of an upper floor. The houses have the multiple rooms. Many of the houses had a central courtyard with the rooms around all around. Now these are the important things we are talking about, and these are the important facts for the exam point of view. Now remember, these you have to learn for your exam point of view. So this Harappan part is very important. You don't have to miss any word or any sentence in this Harappan part. Now the citadel area had the important residential structures that were either used by the public and the select residents. In Mohenjo-daro, a building has been identified as a warehouse. I told you na, prehistory they have given so much. Prehistory you don't have to refer much. Now you have to refer each and the every word of this part, and only it has the 6 pages. So each and the every part of this Harappan, the second part of this book, is very important from your exam point of view. Each and the every line you have to learn. So where necessary, I would be guiding you. I would be telling you what is important, what is not. Now the Great Bath, it is an important. The Great Bath is a tank situated within a courtyard. The corridors were present all over were present on the all four sides, and the stairs are seen on the northern and the southern sides. It was well paved with the several adjacent rooms. Some structures are identified as the granary. The bricks were laid the watertight and the gypsum mortar. It had the drainage. It is associated with the ritual bathing. So this is an exam is an important topic from the exam point of view. Next comes is the subsistence and the economic production. Seri Raja, Seri, have you got what I am saying? I have learnt one word from of the Tamil, that is Seri. Sari, not Sari, not Sari. So Sari. Subsistence and the economic production. Next topic. Agriculture was an important source of the subsistence for the Harappans. The Harappans cultivated the diverse crops such as the wheat, barley, lentils, the chickpea, sesame, and the various millets. The agricultural surplus was an important stimulus for a number of the developments. They adopted a double cropping system. The Harappans used the plows. Now they perhaps they plowed the land and then showed the seeds. Yeah, I have learned from the recent movie that have been released of the Sushant Singh Rajput. There he talks about this word sari. From that movie I have learned about this word. The Harappans used the plows, they perhaps plowed the land and then sowed the seeds. The plowed fields have been found at the Kalibangan. They used both the canal and the well irrigation. So plowed fields हमें मिली हैं कहाँ से? कालीबंगन से. वो इनको कैनाल और इरिगेशन के लिए यूज करते थे. Now, archaeobotanists study the ancient agriculture and human environmental relationships. Now, next comes is the animal domestication. The pastoralism was also practiced by the Harappans. Now, they domesticated the sheep, goat, and the foal. They had known of the various other animals, including the buffalo, pig, and the elephant. But horse was not known to them. Now remember this point, that the horse was not known to the Harappan people. It come from the central India. The metal was first used in the copper era. Copper was the first metal used to be used by the men. Iron age. First comes is the copper age, then comes is the iron age. So these people were the first to use the metal, and first metal to be used was the bronze. And the later on in the Vedic part we will find about the period is this only, the copper age. The copper age is the period. Now the Harappan cattle are called as the Jebu. Harappan cattle को Jebu बोलते हैं. It is a large breed often represented in their shield. Not Neolithic, this only. Neolithic is about the prehistoric period. Now this Indus Valley civilization, it belongs to the copper age. And the next, that prehistoric Neolithic is your stone age. There they have no mention of the metal. Now itself in the name is mentioned Lithic. Lithic means the stone age. So remember that there was no evidence of the metal to be used in the Neolithic period. It has been used in the Indus Valley civilization or the copper age. And this age is called as the Chalcolithic phase. Chalcolithic means the copper stone age. Chalco means copper and the lithic means the stone age. The Harappan cattle are called as the Jebu. It is a large breed often represented in their seals. They also ate the fish and the birds. Evidence of the boar, deer, ghadial have been found in the Harappan sites. Next, we will be talking about the craft production. Craft production was an important part of the Harappan economy. Beads and the ornament making, shell bangle making, and the metal working were the major crafts. They made the beads and the ornaments out of the carnelian, jasper, crystal, and the steatite metals like the copper, bronze, and the gold, and the shell, faience, and the terracotta or burnt clay. The beads were made in the innumerable designs and the decorations. They were exported to the Mesopotamia, and the evidence for the such export artifacts have been found from the excavations in the Mesopotamian sites. Now, the certain Harappan sites specialized in the production of the certain craft materials. Now, this table is an important for your exam point of view. Sometimes UPSC asks you directly. Match the following. So, shell, the Nageshwar and the Balakot, lapis lazuli, Shotugai, and the carnelian, Lothal. The cetatite is the South Rajasthan, and the copper Rajasthan and the Oman. Next topic is about the pottery. The Harappan used a diverse variety of the pottery for their daily use. Now they use the well-fired pottery. Their potteries have a deep red slip and the black paintings. The pottery are shaped like the discs on the stands and the storage jars, the performed jars, goblets, then ash-shaped jars, plates, dishes, bowls, and the pots. The painted motifs generally noticed on the pottery are people leaves, the fish scale design, intersecting circles, zigzag lines, and the horizontal bends and geometrical motifs with the floral and the faunal patterns. The Harappan pottery is well baked and fine in the decorations. So you can see the picture depicts about the Harappan pottery. So various size and the shapes of the pottery have been found. Now comes the topic of the metal that you were asking me. The Harappan civilization belonged to the Bronze Age civilization, and the Harappans knew how to make the copper and the bronze tools. Although they produced the bronze implements, they needed the various kinds of the tools for the agriculture and the craft production. The Harappans used the chert blades, the copper objects, and the bone and the ivory tools. The tools of the pointed chisels, needles, the fish hooks, the razors, weighting pens, the mirror, and the antimony rods were the made of the copper. The chert blades made out of the rockery chert was used by the Harappans. Their weapons include the arrowheads, the spearhead, the celt, and the axe. They did not have the knowledge of the iron. Now, Rory Chet. Remember this last line that they does not have the knowledge of the iron. This is important. They also does not have the knowledge of the horse. These 2 points are important. Rory chert. The chert, a fine-grained sedimentary rock, was found in the region of the Rory in the Pakistan. It was used by the Harappans for the making the stone blades and the tools. Next is about the textiles and the ornaments. Now, when we have covered the modern history, do solve the previous year questions. I have earlier solved the previous year questions when I have taken the prelims classes. The video is also available with you. सो आपकी मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री खत्म हो चुका है, तो अब उसके प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस को बार बार पढ़ो, बार बार रिपीट करके पढ़ो. And if you face any problem solving them, you can ask me directly. Now next comes is the textiles and the ornaments. The Harappan wore the clothes and they used the metal and the stone ornaments. They had the knowledge of the cotton and the silk. The image identified as a priest is depicted wearing a shawl-like cloth with the flower decoration. The terracotta figurine images or the images of the women are shown wearing the different types of the ornaments. The image of the dancing girl found at the Mohenjo-daro is shown wearing the bangles in the large numbers up to the upper arm. Now they made the carnelian, copper, and the gold ornaments. Some of them have had etched the designs and they exported them to the Mesopotamian world. The fans, stoneware, and the shell bangles were also used. The ornaments produced were either sold or exchanged as part of the trade activities. Next comes is the trade and the exchange. One of the sources of the Harappan economy was the trade and the exchange activities. Harappans had the closer trade contacts with the Mesopotamians and also with the various cultures of the India. The Harappan seals and the materials have been found in the Sumerian sites of the Oman, Bahrain, Iraq, and the Iran. The cuneiform inscription. The cuneiform inscriptions, they mention about the trade contacts between the Mesopotamia and the Harappans. The mention of the Malua in the cuneiform inscription refers to the Indus region. A Harappan jar has been found in the Oman. Harappan seals, weights, dyes, and the beads are found in the Mesopotamia. Carnelian, the lapis lazuli, copper, gold, and the varieties of the wood were exported to the Mesopotamia. Harappans also interacted with the various regions of the India and acquired the raw materials and processed them. Next is about the weights and the measures. The Harappans had developed the proper weights and the measures. Since they were involved in the commercial transactions, they needed the standard measures. The cubical chart weights have been unearthed from the Harappan sites. The weights exhibit a binary system. The ratio of the weight is doubled as the 1 ratio 2 ratio 4 ratio 8 ratio 16 ratio 32, and the small weights measure of the 16th ratio weights the 13.63 grams. They also used a measuring scale in which 1 inch was around 1.75 centimeter. Weights made up of the chart were cubical. They used the binary numbering system, that is 1 2 4 8 16 and the 32, etc. They might have been used for the weighting the jewelry and the metal. Next is about the seals, sealing, and the scripts. The seals from the various media such as the sheetite, copper, terracotta, ivory are frequently found in the Harappan sites. The Harappan script has not yet been convincingly deciphered. उसको पढ़ा नहीं गया है अभी तक. About 5,000 texts have been documented from the Harappan sites. The longest text has about 26 signs. Some scholars are of the view that it is the Dravidian. Seals might have been used as an identity maker on the materials that were transported. They might have indicated the ownership. Next comes is about the arts and the amusement. The terracotta figurines, the paintings and the pottery and the bronze images from the Harappan site suggest the artistic nature of the Harappans. Priest king and the of the sheetite and the dancing girl of the copper, both from the Mohenjo-daro, and the stone sculptures from the Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and the Dholavira are the important objects of the art. Toy carts, the rattles, wheels, tops, marbles, and the hot scorches exhibit the amusement of the Harappan people. Now, next is about their faith and the belief system. The Indus people worshipped the nature. They worshipped the people tree. Some of the terracotta figurines appear to be a mother goddess. Then fire altars have been identified at the Kalibangan. They buried the dead. Burials were found made elaborately, and the evidences of the cremation is also reported. The Harappan burials have the pottery, ornaments, jewelry, copper mirrors, and the beads. Now these suggest their belief in the artifacts. So you can see the picture shown. Now next is about the polity. Now uniformity in the pottery, seals, and the weights and the reveals the existence of a polity. Labor mobilization may also suggest the existence of the political system. Harappa and the Mohenjo-daro might have had a city state like the polity. Now, the uniformity in the, if we talk about the uniformity in the cultural materials and the measurement units points to a central authority during the Harappan times. Next comes is the authorships and the making of the Indian culture. One school of the thought argues that the authors of the Harappan civilization were the speakers of the Dravidian language. Now, the archaeological evidence shows the movement of the Harappans to east and the south after the decline of their civilization. Some of the Harappan people could have moved into the different part of the India. However, only the decipherment of the script would give us a definite answer. Now, next is about the contemporary cultures and of the Indus civilization. Several groups, including the pastoral people, farmers, and the hunters gatherers, lived in the Indus region. The Indus region had villages and the large towns. The population of that time was mixed. Now, innumerable communities of the hunter gatherers, pastoral people, and the farmers from the Kanyakumari to Kashmir and the Gujarat to the Arunachal Pradesh could have existed during this period. Their history is also equally important as the cultural and the ecological knowledge of all these groups contributed to Indian culture. While the Indus civilization was flourishing in the northwestern part of the India, several cultures were developing in the different parts of India. In the southern part of the subcontinent, Kerala and the Sri Lanka were the given the hunting and the were given to hunting and gathering. The Harappans who had the knowledge of the water crafts might have had the connections and the interactions with the South India, but no clear evidence have been shown. The northern part of the South India, that is the Karnataka and the Andhra region, had the Neolithic cultures engaged in the pastoralism, the plough agriculture. Similarly, the Chalcolithic cultures were prevalent in the Deccan and the Western India, while the Neolithic cultures permitted northern India, including the Kashmir, Ganges Valley, and the central and the eastern India. Thus, India was a cultural mosaic during the time of the Harappans. And the last part of this is the decline of this era. This is not for the polity. We does not study the historical polity. Ancient history is not a part of the PSIR. The Indus Valley civilization declined from the about 1900 BCE. Changes in the climate, decline of the trade with the Mesopotamia, and the drying of the river and the water resources due to the continuous drought are the some of the reason attributed by the historians for the decline. Invasions, flood, and the shifting of the river course are also cited as the reasons for the ruin of the Indus civilization. In course of time, the people shifted to the southern and the eastern directions from the Indus region. Yeah. Now, this the last thing is about the Indus civilization and Tamil civilization. This is not our topic. We will be leaving this part. And this map I was talking about that, so they have given earlier this map, they have mentioned earlier. So let's come to the questions directly. Now there are 10 questions. Let's do them. The period before the development of the script is called as the prehistoric period. The earliest age in the history is called as the old stone age, that is the Paleolithic period. The first Paleolithic tools were identified in which year? So the question number third, it talks about the year, that is the data. (1863) is the answer. Then Bagor 1, Bagor 3rd of the Son Valley in the Madhya Pradesh are the some of the dash sites in the India. I think the answer of this is the Neolithic. If I am wrong for the fourth answer, you can correct me. According to me, it should be that the site of the Mahargarh has been okay, it is Upper Paleolithic then. Okay, Bagor is the Mesolithic. Bagor is Mesolithic, not Upper Paleolithic. So Bagor first and the third. Bagor second is in the Mesolithic. Bagor second is in Mesolithic, and then Bagor first and the second they are talking to you. Bagor first and the third. Is it correct, Raja? Can I lock it down? Because these factual datas I have problem with them. Now next comes is about the site of the Mahargarh, where you will find the Mahargarh. Okay, I have locked it down. Site of the Mahargarh, where you will find the Mahargarh. Tell me about the Mahargarh. Mahargarh is of your Neolithic is the answer of the Mahargarh. So you will find that in the Neolithic culture in the northwestern India. The dash inscriptions mention the trade contacts of between the Mesopotamia. This is the cuneiform. So I told you na, the conceptual questions are my clear. Now Burzahom is an important. Burzahom is in Kashmir. So Neolithic culture of the Kashmir. Early Harappa period was early Harappa period. So you have to tell the time period of the early Harappa period is 3000 से लेके. So A is the answer. Dash was an important source of the subsistence of the Harappans. So agriculture was the. And the last question is the Indus Civilization declined from about which BCE? So this we have recently studied. So it started declining from the 19 BCE. If I have done any question of mine is wrong, do let me know about that. अगर मेरा कोई क्वेश्चन गलत हुआ है तो do let me know about that. So let's end the class. This took me 1 hour 40 minutes to complete this chapter. So second part, remember, that is the second part of this chapter, that is very important. So goodbye for today. Take care and do study this chapter.